So setting yourself up for fundraising success. There are 5 things that I want to share with you guys in this area. One is share your personal story. I know from having done this for many years now at this point that some people keep their story close to them. They don't feel comfortable talking about it. And this is an area in which you need to be willing to stretch yourself a little bit, because your personal story is really what sets you apart from all of the other ways that people get asked for money. And it's also really compelling. You know, my reason for doing the 3-day when I participated was for my mother, who had been, recently diagnosed with cancer. And a lot of people didn't know how to help, and this was a way in which they could do that. My reasons, as I said, it's changed over the years, and it's also allowed me to keep my donors along for this journey, especially for those of you who have been doing the event over and over again. I know that there are different reasons that are introduced into why you have done this event, why you continue to do it. We have the pleasure of meeting some really incredible people through our participation in this event. But sharing your personal story is really important for you in being successful with your fundraising. Asking for a specific and meaningful amount. As I said, making sure that you ask for what you want. I know for some people they are most comfortable leaving it open-ended, but again, if we're going back to what do you need to do to be successful, you need to ask people for a specific amount. When I say meaningful, and I talk about this when you decide on what your fundraising goal is as well, what I mean is, say, for example, you lost your grandmother when she was 67 years old, and maybe that is a meaningful amount for you to ask as your base for how much you would like for people to consider donating to your fundraising request. I'm going to share a little bit later about, one of the ways in which I helped my sister, but this was one of the ways in terms of helping her come up with a specific and meaningful amount as well. Creating a short deadline. Now, if some of you are on this call and you're participating in the Michigan event, this is already built into what you're doing right now, because we're about, I think, 2.5, 3 weeks away from the first event of the season, which is Michigan. But for those of you who may be doing some of our later markets, one of the challenges that you face is that there's so much time between now and when you have to show up on events. We hear it, over and over again from our participants that there's like a lack of urgency from your donors because there's so much time until the event. And this is something that you have the ability to manipulate and to really change for yourself. Creating a shorter deadline is absolutely what's helped me be most successful with my fundraisers. Specific to my participation in Cycle for Survival, as I said, I said that I was trying to raise $10,000 in 10 days or $13,000 in 15 days. By setting that short deadline, it prevents people from being able to procrastinate, and it also gives you the time to be able to follow up with people in a shorter time frame. So I would encourage all of you to consider setting a shorter deadline for yourself. And as you communicate with donors and potential donors, it's very easy to be able to say something like, I'm participating in the San Diego 3-day, although the event isn't until November. I've set a goal for myself to hit my fundraising goal by July 31st. Will you please consider making a $67 donation today to help ensure that I meet my goal by the end of the month so I can focus entirely on my training? So there's language that you can use absolutely to help get you there for that short deadline. And then set a challenging and meaningful goal. As I said, I, in the past couple of years, have sort of fooled around with this year I decided to do $13,000 in 15 days because I realized that at the end of that year that I will have raised $40,000 for this organization in the past 4 years if I was able to raise $13,000. So that's how I set that goal. It was definitely challenging, but what I found was that my donors were really engaged in my goal. They understood why I had set that goal, and they were willing to meet me there based on the donations that I got from people because I set it so high. And I think sometimes we set the goal at what the fundraising minimum is for this event, right? Like $2,300 is my goal. But, the second you kind of expand your sights a little bit beyond that, I really believe that you'll be pleasantly surprised that the people in your life are going to help you want to get there, and they're going to respond a little differently based on your goal, not on your fundraising minimum. And the last thing is that you need to be willing to work for your goal, especially if you set, a crazy goal like I have, right? I mean, I can't tell you how uncomfortable I got, but I was willing to get uncomfortable because the goal was really important to me. The cause was really important to me. And as I said, we have the pleasure of being surrounded by so many passionate people who are completely motivated and inspired by so many reasons to participate in the 3-day. But you have to be willing to work for your goal. And for me, that meant stepping outside of my comfort zone, one, just by how I set the goal, but how many people I reached out to, how I asked them for money, how much I asked them for, and how many times I was willing to follow up with them before I kind of considered my fundraising done. So it's hard work. That's also why I feel like creating a shorter deadline is a little more manageable, because I don't think any one of us could sustain, working over the course of, 3-4 months at that pace. But if you dedicate a little bit of time every day for, 2-3 weeks to reach your goal by doing all of these things that we're going to go into detail with, that helps kind of keep that to a confined space so that you have brain power and space for other things in your life.